1,000 plus 1,000 is 2,000, and 2,000 plus 2,000 is 4,000, because I learned it in school. I mean, it feels really good. Like, you have a lot of people to play with and you feel so good at school.
When I was a child and I went to Bryan School kindergarten, I didn't know English. And at that time, we were forbidden for speaking Spanish in school. And I got in trouble quite a bit. I was scared. Then eventually, as time went on, I became angry. I eventually became an alcoholic and a drug addict because, I didn't learn how to love myself. We get blamed for the economy. We get blamed for taking people's jobs. We get blamed for the drugs. We get blamed for everything, And so as a child, you hear these messages constantly. That is what Buena Vista Horace Mann is really good about addressing.
Buena Vista Horace Mann is first and foremost a community school, which to me means that you, as a parent, can expect that your child's needs will be met regardless of what they are. If your child is struggling to read, if your child is struggling to get to school, if your child is struggling with food insecurity. So our stayover program is a shelter that operates out of our gym and auditorium every night. At this point, there have been students from every school in the school district that have stayed at our stayover program. And in a very short amount of time, what you see is that those students are able to show up differently in class. They're getting a good night's sleep. They know that their families are being taken care of. And as a result, they're able to focus more during class time. Also, we are very proudly the oldest Spanish-immersion school in San Francisco.
As a new migrant, being in a school like that allowed me to just have that extra support and making sure that, my parents could easily come into school, into the office and, take me out for an appointment without struggling to look for a Spanish speaker.
I wouldn't be a deportation defense lawyer without speaking Spanish. I would be a really different person. I've been able to go abroad. I was able to live in South America for a year, actually, and work with refugees for a lot of that time.
Our school has always been known as an arts school. We believe that students should have a worldly education.
When we have our minds engaged in something creative and positive, we become better human beings. Sometimes I realize that the students were kind of lost in identity, if you want to call it like that, for whatever reason. They weren't here or they came here when they were very little and they didn't really know their culture, and that was important for me. Is we need to start with that.
It's been beautiful to see organically how Carnival has just brought people together. Buena Vista Horace Mann was one of the first schools that I started working with.
It was such a exciting thing to join every year and very bonding. You'd going on the weekends and it was always, what's the theme gonna be and what are our costumes gonna be?
How do we make something impactful, beautiful, and stunningly amazing with a very limited budget? This is such a Mexican thing to do. The community came together to float. It had these beautiful birds drawn on the side, and we built a Transamerica, a Golden Gate, and the Palace of Fine Arts.
We do know, how deeply we can be touched when, for instance, we're singing in a group together. You have this experience that's hard to put into words a lot of times.
I grew up learning spirituals, not knowing that would be something that I would carry as an adult. My daughter's in high school now, but I still come here every year and do some sort of Black History program. I share the history of a lot of the spirituals, a lot of Black music that I learned growing up.
We went to a symphony one time in kinder. It was Christmas songs, it was Jingle Bells, a lot of instruments, and there's there's stuff that's high. They teach us a high, and then a low one.
When you take money away from those programs, then they disappear, and then the kids are left with nothing. These kids aren't going to private music teachers.
It was a second grader He was in class, but he didn't understand the math problems. So he got so frustrated, he ran out of class, and I was right there in front of him. And I told him, hey, are you okay? He said, I don't understand the question. I walked into the class, I asked the teacher, and she was like, there was a lot of students and they all didn't understand, and it was like frustrating, it was stressful. So I went into the class and helped her out. The school is just one big community, to be honest. I want to come work here with students for like kinder or first and second.
This school, I think, develops kids who are very empathetic. It's a very important ethic that exists here. There's no amount of money that can pay for that.
Mission Action is the organization that helps to run the shelter that's out of Buena Vista. We are a team of people doing deportation defense law, and there is a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric right now. I really like being a part of pushing back against that.
One time I saw my dad drawing on a small 8.5 by 11 sheet with a simple number 2 pencil and a ruler. And when I went back to school, I remember asking a teacher, like, what is the person that designs a house called? And then I remember we went to the library like on Friday, and she remembered, and she was like, here, you should check this out, right? And she showed me a book about drawings and architecture, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, this is cool. I knew I wanted to utilize architecture as a tool for advocacy. Currently at Harvard, I'm pursuing a post-professional master's degree in architecture. I'm sort of involved in this idea of like understanding my narrative, understanding my family's narratives, and understanding how we fit in the larger narrative of undocumented people.
That's why it's important, because you want to develop leaders, thinkers. You choose the way you want to exist in society, right? They don't need less support, they need more support, you know? They need way more support, you know, to continue that. You know, there's no private school that can replicate what happens here. So the community has to be a part of it to keep this alive, to keep it going, to make it thrive.